Hello and welcome. This is Gary Simon, Chief Executive of FSN and the leader of the Modern Finance Forum on LinkedIn. Today I'm excited to present the findings of FSN's Future of Financial Reporting Survey 2017, and at this point I'd like to thank our sponsor ClusterSeven for their kind support in making this research possible. The research was crowdsourced from the Modern Finance Forum on LinkedIn. Nobody was incentivized to participate in the research. And with nearly 1,000 responses from senior finance professionals, it represents one of the largest and most authentic surveys of CFO opinion in 2017. 55% of the responses came from Europe, 15% from North America, approximately 15% from Asia Pac, and then the rest scattered across the world. Almost half of the sample came from companies with more than 1,000 employees and 25% from organizations with more than 10,000 employees. The results focus on three areas: expectations around self-service reporting, the extent to which current reporting practices form a sound foundation for the future of the finance function, and lastly, CFOs' technology priorities for the future. Expectations are high around self-service reporting, but the survey finds that perhaps this confidence is misplaced. And it's important to understand the changing dynamics of the finance function in order to appreciate the trend in self-service reporting. A new survey earlier this year found that over the last 3 years, 40% of finance organizations have kept their finance headcount flat. In addition, 25% of organizations have reduced their finance headcount over the last 3 years. So, over the last 3 years, only 35% of finance organizations have managed to grow their headcount. Therefore, the current finance function is under considerable pressure. A survey last year showed that 52% of finance functions find they're spending too much time on transaction processing, 42% find they're spending too much time on management accounting, and 32% find they're spending too much time on statutory reporting. So it's no wonder that 2/3 of finance functions say they don't have the time to spend on process improvement and innovation. Nearly a half say they are not actively involved in strategy development because of lack of time. Half of CFOs spend less time than they need to on performance management, and more than half say they don't spend enough time on business partnering and pet projects. There are a number of features which participants in this year's survey say they find keeps them awake. In fact, 97% of CFOs say they are kept awake by issues in the financial reporting process. 90%, the vast majority, worry about two aspects of the reporting process, and only a tiny 3% don't lose any sleep at all. So what exactly is keeping CFOs awake? Well, by far the most important issue is the fact that many finance teams worry that they will not meet their reporting deadlines. In fact, 61% said they worried about this aspect of reporting. 55% worry that financial controls are not working. 50% are concerned about not all documents and disclosures being updated with the latest changes to accounts. And 42% can't see the status of reporting at any point in time. Probably most troubling is 40%, which I think is a very large number, were unable to agree that their data is always trustworthy and accurate. So if you're looking at the trend to self-service reporting, why would a finance function want to expose all of these concerns and worries and doubts about the integrity of data and control to the wider user population? Self-service reporting means that the finance function is going to unveil all these problems to all of the users in the organization. And this is likely to create more questions than the finance function is able to answer. So we've concluded that although self-service reporting is something for the future, it's going to be difficult for many organizations to move to self-service reporting given the underlying frailty of their reporting systems. But it's utterly understandable why organizations want self-service reporting. They see it as a way of offloading the burden on the finance function. It's an easy, quick fix, allowing the users to help themselves to the information they need. But the facts show that the finance function simply isn't ready for this at this stage. Respondents to the survey also point to a number of other issues with the reporting process, which we categorize as problems with the inventory, the stock of financial reports, if you like, with problems with actually day-to-day reporting issues, and finally the trickling of these issues through to the boardroom. So let's have a look at each of these in turn. The financial inventory is out of control. By inventory, I mean the stock of regular reports that's produced in the organization. Simply because finance functions don't have the time, 50% of them are not removing redundant information from their reporting packs. 41% continue to produce redundant reports. A large number can't identify their business critical spreadsheets, and 33% of finance teams don't even know which reports are being used. Perhaps one of the most exciting and interesting areas of the survey was the spreadsheet spiral, as we have named it. Everybody knows that spreadsheets have been growing and growing and growing in the organization. We all are aware of the benefits of spreadsheets, but also their profound disadvantages. And spreadsheets have been with us for a very long time, since in fact the early 1980s. But over those decades, spreadsheets have grown almost uncontrollably. Many organizations have thousands of spreadsheets, and there's no sign of a halt to the growth in spreadsheet use. So what exactly is going on? Starting in the top right-hand corner of the spreadsheet spiral illustrated here, we find that organizations have a high dependency on spreadsheets. For example, 71% depend on spreadsheets for collecting data across the majority or all their business units. But when it comes to changing the reporting, lots of organizations struggle with that. 49% say they're unable to make changes to their organizational structure without major delays to their reporting cycle. So what happens is that many of these organizations turn to their IT function to help them. But the IT functions are generally unresponsive. They are unable to turn around new information requests and new reporting requests for several weeks. So what does the finance function do? It actually develops some more spreadsheets, adding to the high dependency on spreadsheets. So we go round the spreadsheet spiral once again, increasing the dependency on spreadsheets, unable to change the underlying ERP and CPM systems, corporate performance management systems, to reflect the latest changes in information requirements, unable to leverage the IT function, and therefore developing new spreadsheets, adding to the mountain of spreadsheets in the organization. Respondents to the survey report a large number of factors that cause them issues with reporting. For example, 43% say they're highly reliant on manual checking. Nearly half say they have trouble with redundant information, clogging up the system. Others struggle to add new information sources. Others fear that controls aren't working. And others spend too much time on data collection. Most organizations suffer from one or more of these difficulties during core financial reporting processes. But at the center of it all, and what was fascinating in the survey, is we discovered that if an organization is concerned about the discovery of an unexpected error being uncovered in their spreadsheets, then they are also very likely to be susceptible to all these other issues. It's as if spreadsheet errors are a litmus test for the condition and robustness of financial reporting in general. So there's a tight correlation between concern for undiscovered spreadsheet errors and other reporting failings. The gold bars will show the organizations that are concerned about an unexpected error being discovered in a spreadsheet. The blue bars illustrate those that are not concerned about a spreadsheet error being discovered. And what we see is there's a huge gap between the two types of organization, most noticeable around manual checking and most noticeable around whether controls have been working or whether critical spreadsheets can be identified. Those organizations that have concerns about an unexpected error being uncovered in the spreadsheets are also likely to suffer by a huge amount over the organizations that aren't worried about spreadsheet errors. So this is a critical point in reporting, and organizations that are worried about spreadsheet errors are at a considerable disadvantage. Eventually, all these things, the spreadsheet spiral, all of these integrity issues in core financial reporting spill over into the boardroom. And we found that 61%, only 61% of CFOs say they've got a complete view of business performance in the boardroom, which leaves a staggering 40% that don't have a complete view. 50% say their questions, their ad hoc questions in the boardroom can't be answered immediately. 57% of CFOs have made changes to the board pack, leaving 43% who haven't been able to change the board pack over the last 3 years in a period of tumultuous change and new information requirements and new business models and new competitive upstarts. So it's very difficult for it seems that it's very difficult for organizations to change their reporting pack. And even 30% admit that decisions in the boardroom are being delayed by data quality concerns. It's not just data and that's causing concern in the reporting process. There are also strains on productivity, particularly around the handling of documents. We appear not to be very good at handling documents. For example, 34% of organizations struggle to merge different report formats into a final report. So they have trouble merging Word documents and Excel spreadsheets into a final document. They have trouble linking it to the underlying results, and they're never sure whether the results in the final report agree with changes made in underlying documents. And finally, for most organizations, 57%, the truth is that only one person can work on a report at any given point in time. So taking that as a whole, CFOs appear to be overwhelmed by the weight of problems in the reporting process. Understandably, they want a quick fix, but the priorities they have identified for the future to repair the reporting process seem to us to be upside down. Let me explain. Years ago, I would have presented the financial reporting process as this sort of diagram. In this diagram, we see the reporting process stretching from ERP in the subsidiaries and reporting entities and local operational reporting, through to ultimately filing at the end of the process with a validation of data and consolidation and adjustments happening in between. We've lived with this style of representation of the process for a very long time, and it's led us to repair the reporting process wherever the problems occur along the route. So, for example, in this survey, respondents are saying that one of the biggest problems is errors and delays in data submission from other business units, difficulties in reconciliations and intercompany, and so on and so forth. But actually fixing these things individually is no solution. What we've seen over the years is companies trying to fix these problems, tinkering with the edges of the reporting process, but being unable to make an enduring impact on the process overall. And that's because the process is a linear process. It can only proceed as fast as the slowest part of the process. So your problems in the boardroom are not going to be fixed unless you've dealt with the underlying problems in the spreadsheet spiral. You're not going to be able to finalize and get overall picture of performance in the organization unless you've collected satisfactorily data from every part of the organization. And so we've decided out of this research to give a different representation of the reporting process, not looking at it chronologically from data capture to filing, but to look at it in terms of the big reporting domains that are giving a problem, starting with the spreadsheet spiral, moving to what we call the reporting ecosystem, this detailed area of difficulty in the middle of the reporting cycle, finally ending up in the boardroom. Out of the survey, CFOs noted what their priorities are for the future. Top of the list came automated document production with version control and electronic signatures, followed by self-service reporting, automated governance and control spreadsheets, and so on and so forth. But to us, this list appeared upside down. There's no point in introducing automated document production if you haven't fixed the spreadsheet spiral. As we saw earlier, you can't have self-service reporting if you've got real doubts over data quality and data integrity. So how should organizations go about fixing the problem? The spreadsheet spiral, if you remember, was caused by 2 or 3 key factors. The first was that an organization was unable to change its underlying ERP or CPM, corporate performance management systems, to reflect changes in information requirements, changes in organizational structure, or changes in business models, and so forth. There was also a high degree of reliance on the IT function. So unfortunately, the only way of repairing the spreadsheet spiral is to introduce unified transaction or ERP systems that can change as the organization changes. Similarly, introducing information systems, corporate performance management systems, that can also change with the organization. And finally, making those applications maintainable by finance, probably in the cloud. Once you've got a secure, unified environment, then integration and automation quickly fall out. Obviously, if everyone's sharing a single environment with the same data, the same applications, the same user interface, then integration is no longer a problem and automation is no longer a problem because all the applications talk to each other. Indeed, many of the new applications in the cloud are also good at bringing in data from external sources. So once you've set the scene by having a unified environment, you can start to clear out the redundant information. You can start to clear out the reports you don't need, the spreadsheets you don't need. And because your you've got a unified environment. Once you've cleared it out, it's done permanently. You don't have to go changing things in lots of different places as before. And once you've done that, then you've set the scene for automated document production and disclosure management and self-service reporting. So we can see that actually the approach that we're suggesting tackles the priorities that the CFOs have identified in this survey, but in the opposite direction. By tackling the spreadsheet spiral, developing a unified environment, you automatically reduce the number of vendors and enable collaboration. By setting the scene and having a unified environment, it then leaves you free to clear out the clutter, reduce the number of reports, reduce the number of spreadsheets, and focus on the spreadsheets that really matter, and perhaps a single chart of accounts. And then finally, once you've done all of that, then you're in a position to introduce self-service reporting and automated document production. So what we've seen is, from the beginning of this survey, that the finance function is under huge pressure and understandably is looking for ways to offload that pressure, perhaps onto the user community by self-service reporting. But actually, the finance function today isn't really ready in many cases to go that route. There are too many doubts over data integrity. There are too many doubts caused by the spreadsheet spiral, and ultimately all of this is manifesting itself in problems in the boardroom. The way to tackle it is to tackle it at root, not the projects of the past where people just tried to identify little bits of the process to repair, but a root and branch change, swapping out ERP systems for systems that really can change with the business, with its information requirements, with new business models, with competition. And then, having established a unified environment, then is the time to introduce self-service reporting and automated document production. Well, I hope you found the survey results interesting and that you gained something from the analysis in this webinar. Thank you so much.